The ballroom shimmered beneath thousands of golden lights, but Elara Quinn noticed only one person in the crowded room: Adrian Vale. For 6 months, Adrian had been the center of her world. He was wealthy, admired, and seemingly untouchable, yet with her he had always been gentle. He remembered the smallest things: a tea she liked, a song that calmed her, the scar on her wrist she never spoke about. Tonight, Elara believed he was finally going to ask her to marry him. She had come wearing the silver dress he once told her made her look like moonlight. Instead, she watched him kiss another woman. The woman was Serena Cross, Adrian's former wife. Elara stood frozen as Serena's hands curled around Adrian's neck. The kiss lasted only seconds, but those seconds shattered every beautiful memory Elara had trusted. When Adrian pulled away, his face changed. Elara. She couldn't move. He hurried toward her. "Please, wait." Serena smiled behind him. Elara looked from Adrian to the woman he had just kissed. "Don't," she whispered. "It isn't what you think." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Then tell me what I should think." Adrian stopped. He had no answer. That silence hurt more than the kiss. Serena stepped closer, her expression cold. "You should have known better than to believe you were the exception." Elara turned toward her. "Perhaps I did." Then she faced Adrian. "I thought I was." His eyes filled with panic. "Elara, listen to me. I made a terrible mistake." "No." Her voice trembled, but she refused to cry. "You made a choice." "I didn't mean." "You don't get to tell me what it meant." She removed the diamond bracelet he had given her and placed it in his hand. Adrian stared at it. "Elara, don't leave." She looked at him for a long moment. "I already left." Then she walked away. Adrian followed her through the ballroom and into the cold rain outside. He caught up just as she reached her car. "Elara, please." She turned. Rain slid down her cheeks, hiding the tears she wouldn't allow him to see. "I loved you," she said. Adrian's breath caught. "I know." "No, you don't." Her voice broke. "Because if you knew what that meant, you would understand why I can never stand beside you again." He reached for her hand. She stepped back. "Don't touch me." Adrian lowered his hand. "Give me one chance to explain." Elara stared at him. "You had your chance. You used it to kiss her." She climbed into the car. Before closing the door, she gave him one final look. "You didn't lose me tonight, Adrian. You showed me that I had already lost you." The car disappeared into the storm. Adrian remained beneath the rain, holding the bracelet she had returned. For the first time in his life, he understood that money could buy almost anything except the one thing he suddenly needed most: forgiveness. 3 months later, Elara was gone. She had left the city, abandoned her old life, and moved to a quiet coastal town where nobody knew Adrian Vale or the woman who had broken his heart. Adrian searched relentlessly, but every door closed before he reached it. Then, one rainy evening, an envelope arrived at his office. There was no return address. Inside was a photograph. Elara stood beside a frightened little girl Adrian had never seen before. On the back, 6 words were written: "You should have protected her from me." Adrian stared at the photograph. Then he recognized the child. His blood ran cold. She was Serena's daughter. And Serena had disappeared. Adrian read the photograph again and again, hoping the image would somehow change. It didn't. The little girl beside Elara was unmistakably Serena's daughter, Mira. Adrian had met her only twice years ago, when she was still small enough to hide behind her mother's coat. Now she looked frightened, thin, and strangely familiar. The message on the back haunted him. "You should have protected her from me." Adrian immediately began searching for Serena. Within hours, he discovered that she had vanished after withdrawing a large amount of money and abandoning her apartment. Worse, someone had been following Mira. Adrian's first instinct was to find Elara. His second was to wonder why Elara had chosen to protect a child connected to the woman who had destroyed her life. He found the answer 3 days later. A private investigator traced the photograph to a coastal town several hours away. Adrian drove through the night, refusing to stop until he reached a small white house overlooking the sea. He knocked. The door opened. Elara stood before him. For one breath, neither spoke. She looked different. Not broken. Not fragile. Stronger. Adrian's heart tightened. Elara. Her expression immediately hardened. You shouldn't be here. I need to talk to you. No. Then he heard a child's voice behind her. Elara, who is it? Adrian looked past her. Mira stood in the hallway, clutching a worn red suitcase. The little girl recognized him. You're Adrian. He nodded. How do you know my name? Mommy used to talk about you. Elara's face changed. Mira, go upstairs. The child obeyed, but not before giving Adrian a frightened glance. He waited until her footsteps disappeared. Why is she here? Elara crossed her arms. Because she needed someone. She's Serena's daughter. I know. Elara, Serena is dangerous. So is the world. Her answer silenced him. Adrian stared at her. You brought her here alone? I found her at the harbor. She was hiding behind a storage building. His jaw tightened. Where was Serena? Not there. Did Mira tell you anything? Elara's eyes darkened. Enough. Adrian stepped closer. What happened? Elara hesitated. Then she whispered, Serena was using her. A cold fury moved through Adrian. For what? Money. Threats. Whatever she needed. He looked toward the stairs. Why didn't you call the police? Because Mira begged me not to. Adrian closed his eyes. He had spent months searching for Elara, imagining that she had abandoned him out of hatred. But she had been here, protecting a child who had nothing to do with their betrayal. He looked at her again. You could have called me. Elara laughed bitterly. Why? Because I would have helped. You couldn't even stop your ex-wife from humiliating me in front of an entire ballroom. The words struck harder than he expected. Adrian lowered his gaze. I deserved that. You deserve worse. I know. Elara's anger faltered. She had expected excuses. She had expected arrogance. Instead, Adrian stood before her and accepted every accusation. Then the window shattered. Elara screamed. Adrian turned instantly. A bullet struck the wall inches from where Mira was standing. Adrian lunged toward the child. Mira down. Another shot rang out. He grabbed her and pulled her behind the sofa as Elara dropped to the floor. Stay here. Adrian shouted. Elara crawled toward them. Adrian. Get Mira out the back. What about you? Go. A shadow moved outside. Adrian rushed toward the rear door, drawing the attacker's attention away from the child. The door burst open. A masked man charged inside. Adrian tackled him. They crashed against the floor. Elara grabbed Mira and ran. The attacker pulled a knife. Adrian caught his wrist, but the blade sliced across his shoulder. Blood spread across his shirt. Elara froze. Adrian. He shoved the attacker away. Take Mira and run. But Elara didn't. She picked up a heavy wooden chair and struck the attacker from behind. He collapsed. For several seconds, the house was silent. Then Adrian sank against the wall. Elara rushed toward him. You're bleeding. I'm fine. You're not fine. She pressed her hands against the wound. Adrian stared at her. For months, he had dreamed of touching her again. He had imagined apologies, declarations, even forgiveness. He had never imagined her hands trembling against his skin because she was afraid he might die. Why did you come back for me? He whispered. Elara looked furious. Because Mira needs you alive. Adrian almost smiled. Of course. But Elara's eyes betrayed her. She was crying. The police arrived minutes later. The attacker was taken away. Mira was safe. And Adrian was rushed to the hospital. Elara sat beside his bed long after midnight. When Adrian finally opened his eyes, he found her asleep in a chair, one hand resting near his. He stared at her. Then he noticed something. Her fingers were wrapped around his. She had fallen asleep holding his hand. Adrian didn't move. He was terrified that if he did, she would wake up and remember why she had once walked away. Hours later, Elara opened her eyes. Their gazes met. She immediately released him. "I was checking your pulse." Adrian's lips curved faintly. "Naturally." She stood. "I should go." "Elara." She stopped. Adrian looked at her, his voice barely audible. "Thank you for saving me." She shook her head. "You saved Mira. Then thank you for saving the woman who saved me." Elara said nothing. But when she finally walked out of the room, she didn't close the door completely. And Adrian understood. For the first time since the night of the kiss, Elara had left him with something he had never expected to receive. Not forgiveness. Not love. Hope. Adrian remained in the hospital for 2 days, but the wound on his shoulder was nothing compared with the truth he finally decided to face. Elara visited every afternoon. She never stayed long. She brought Mira with her, checked Adrian's bandages, asked the doctor's questions, and left before he could say anything that might expose the fragile hope growing between them. Adrian understood why. Trust was not a door he could force open. It was something he had to rebuild, piece by piece. When he was discharged, he returned to the coastal town instead of his mansion. Elara expected him to leave once the danger passed, but Adrian rented a small apartment near the harbor and quietly helped protect Mira. He never demanded Elara's affection. He never asked her to forgive him. Instead, he showed up. When Mira had nightmares, he sat outside her bedroom until she fell asleep. When Elara's car broke down, he repaired it without mentioning the favor. When the town's old shelter needed supplies, Adrian paid the bill anonymously. Elara noticed everything. She also noticed what he stopped doing. He stopped making promises. He stopped defending himself. Most importantly, he stopped asking her to forget. One evening, Elara found him repairing a broken window at the small house. "You could have hired someone," she said. Adrian glanced at her. "I could." "Then why didn't you?" "Because Mira likes watching me struggle." From inside, Mira shouted, "I heard that." Elara laughed before she could stop herself. Adrian looked at her. The sound silenced him. It was the first genuine laugh she had given him since the night of the kiss. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Then a black car stopped outside. Elara's smile vanished. Serena stepped out. She wore the same confident expression as always, but something had changed in her eyes. Fear. She walked toward the house. Adrian immediately moved in front of Elara. Serena laughed bitterly. "Still playing protector?" Adrian's voice was cold. "Why are you here?" "Because I want my daughter." Mira appeared behind Elara. Serena's expression softened for only a second before becoming hard again. "Come with me, sweetheart." Mira stepped backward. "No." Serena's face twisted. "You don't get to decide." Elara moved between them. "She does." Serena slapped Elara. Adrian caught her wrist before she could strike again. "Never touch her." Serena stared at him. Then she smiled. "Do you know what happens if I tell the police about your family?" Adrian went still. Elara looked at him. "What is she talking about?" Serena's smile widened. "Ask him." Adrian released Serena. Elara turned toward him. "Adrian." He said nothing. That silence was enough. Serena walked away, leaving behind the secret Adrian had spent years burying. Elara followed him inside. What did she mean? Adrian closed the door. "My father caused an accident at one of our factories." Elara stared at him. "An accident?" He ignored safety reports. People were injured. Some died. Her face drained of color. And you knew. I knew afterward. Did you hide it? Adrian looked down. Yes. Elara stepped away from him. The pain in her expression was worse than anger. All this time, you were telling me you wanted to become a better man. I do. Then why did you keep lying? Because I was afraid. Of what? Of losing everything. Elara's voice became bitter. And now? Adrian looked at her. Now I understand that I lost everything the moment I chose fear over the truth. He picked up his phone. Then he called his attorney. I want the investigation reopened. Elara stared at him. Adrian, if you do that, your family will destroy you. They already did. Your company. I'll lose it. Your fortune. Probably. She shook her head. You could disappear. Start over somewhere else. Adrian looked toward Mira. Not anymore. The next morning, Adrian publicly confessed everything. The consequences were immediate. His father disowned him. His board removed him. His family's lawyers attacked his reputation. His fortune began to disappear. Elara watched from a distance as the powerful man she once knew became a target of the very family he had protected. Then, one evening, she found him sitting alone above an abandoned bakery, surrounded by boxes. You lost your house, she said. Yes. Your company. Yes. Your family. Adrian looked at her. Yes. Elara's eyes filled with tears. Why are you smiling? He looked toward the window. Because for the first time, I have nothing left to hide. Elara stood silently. Then she noticed a photograph on the table. It showed Mira standing outside the coastal house. On the back, Adrian had written, She deserves a home where nobody can take her away. Elara looked at him. You want custody? I want to protect her. Even if I never forgive you? Adrian's answer came without hesitation. Yes. Even if I never love you again? His eyes lowered. Yes. That answer finally broke through the wall around her heart. Elara walked closer. You really mean that? Adrian nodded. I spent too long believing love meant holding on to someone. He looked into her eyes. Now I know sometimes love means protecting them, even when they choose to leave. Elara touched his scar. You still have a lot to make up for. I know. You'll hurt again. I know. You may never get the woman you lost back. Adrian swallowed. I know. Elara's eyes softened. Good. She leaned forward and kissed his forehead. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But when she walked away, she left the door open. And Adrian finally understood that this time, if Elara ever returned, it would not be because he had chased her. It would be because she had chosen him. Neither of them knew that Serena's greatest secret had yet to be revealed, and when it finally surfaced, it would change the future of all three of them forever. The storm arrived without warning. By midnight, the coastal town was drowning beneath relentless rain. Water rushed through the streets, electricity failed across the neighborhood, and waves battered the old lighthouse near the harbor. Inside the haven, Elara tried to keep the frightened children calm. Then she noticed Mira was missing. Her heart stopped. Mira. No answer. Elara searched every room, calling her name until panic tightened her throat. Adrian appeared at the entrance, soaked from the rain. What happened? She's gone. His expression changed instantly. They searched the flooded streets together. Near the harbor, Adrian found Myra's red suitcase floating in the water. She's here, he said. Elara stared toward the lighthouse. The old structure stood surrounded by rising waves. No. Adrian grabbed a flashlight. I'm going in. I'm coming with you. Elara, it's dangerous. So is letting you go alone. They reached the lighthouse as the tide climbed higher. Inside, they heard a faint cry. Mira. Adrian. He rushed up the broken staircase. A frightened Mira was trapped above them, clinging to a wooden railing. "I knew you'd come." Adrian climbed toward her. "I'm always coming for you." The staircase suddenly cracked. "Adrian!" He threw himself forward and caught Mira just before she fell. But the floor beneath him collapsed. Elara screamed as Adrian disappeared into the darkness. Seconds passed. Then his hand broke through the water below. "Adrian!" Elara reached down. He caught her wrist. Together, they pulled themselves toward safety. When they finally escaped the lighthouse, Adrian collapsed outside. Elara knelt beside him. "You almost died." He smiled weakly. "So did you. Don't joke." "I'm not." She stared at him, furious and terrified. Then she pulled him into her arms. Adrian froze. Elara was holding him. Not because Mira needed protection. Not because she felt responsible. Because she had been terrified of losing him. When she finally pulled away, tears filled her eyes. "I hate you." Adrian's smile disappeared. "I know. I hate that you made me love you again." He stared at her. Elara realized what she had said. Neither moved. Then Adrian whispered, "Again." Elara looked away. "I didn't say that." "You did." "I was exhausted." "You said." "Adrian." He stopped. For the first time, hope appeared in his eyes. Elara shook her head. "Don't make me regret saying it." "I won't." And this time, he meant it. Months later, the haven reopened. Adrian had rebuilt it with his remaining fortune, but he refused to put his name anywhere on the building. When Elara asked why, he answered simply, "Because it belongs to the people who need it." Mira had a room there. So did dozens of other children. Elara ran the center. Adrian managed its foundation. Their relationship grew slowly, carefully, without promises they weren't ready to keep. Then, one evening, Adrian asked Elara to meet him at the harbor. She found him beside the old lighthouse. "I wanted to show you something." He handed her a small key. "What is it?" "The lighthouse." Elara stared at him. "I bought it." "Why?" "Because I thought we could turn it into something." She looked toward the tower. "Another shelter?" Adrian smiled. "Something different." Inside, the old lighthouse had been transformed. The lower floors were filled with books, music, and children's artwork. The highest room had windows overlooking the sea. Elara walked inside. On the wall was a single photograph. It showed her, Adrian, and Mira standing together outside the haven. Beneath it were 3 words. "We chose family." Elara's eyes filled with tears. "Adrian." He stepped beside her. "I spent a year trying to win you back." She turned toward him. "I know. I was wrong." "About what?" "I thought I needed to make you love me again." He reached into his pocket. This time, he held a ring. Elara's breath caught. Adrian didn't kneel. He didn't pressure her. He simply placed the ring in her hand. "I don't want an answer tonight." She stared at him. "I don't." "No." "Then why give me this?" "Because I want you to know that if you ever choose me, I'll spend the rest of my life protecting that choice." Elara looked at the ring, then at him. "You kissed another woman in front of me." "I know." "You broke my heart." "I know." "I walked away." "I know." She stepped closer. "And you spent all that time trying to find me." "Yes." "Why?" Adrian's voice softened. "Because I thought I was searching for the woman I lost." He touched her cheek. "Then I realized I had to become someone worthy of meeting the woman you became." Elara began to cry. She placed the ring back in his hand. Adrian's face fell. Then she closed his fingers around it. "Not yet." He nodded. "I understand." She smiled. "But don't lose it." Adrian looked at her. "Why?" "Because I might change my mind." He laughed. And Elara kissed him. This time, she didn't walk away. A year later, they married at the haven. Mira carried the rings. The children they had rescued stood around them. There were no cameras, no extravagant guests, and no powerful families pretending to celebrate. Only the people who mattered. After the ceremony, Elara took Adrian to the harbor. They stood together beneath the same sky where she had once left him forever. Adrian looked at her. "Do you regret it?" "Regret what?" "Leaving me." Elara thought for a moment. "No." His smile faded. She squeezed his hand. "I needed to leave." He nodded. "And I needed to lose you." She looked at him. "Why?" "Because if I hadn't lost you, I would never have understood what I had." Elara leaned against his shoulder. Behind them, Mira and the children were laughing. The old lighthouse shone above the water. And the woman Adrian had once destroyed by a single careless kiss had become the woman who helped him rebuild his entire life. He had not won her back. He had earned the chance to love her again. And Elara had not returned to the life she once knew. She had chosen a new one. Together, they turned the lighthouse into a refuge for abandoned children, survivors, and anyone who believed they had nowhere left to go. Years later, people would ask Elara why she had forgiven Adrian. Her answer never changed. "I didn't forgive the man who kissed his ex." She would look toward Adrian, surrounded by their children and the family they had built. "I fell in love with a man who became someone else afterward." And whenever Adrian heard those words, he would smile, because he knew the truth. The kiss had ended their old story, but it had not ended their love. It had forced them to become people capable of creating something far more beautiful than the life they had lost. A family, a home, a second chance. And in the end, the happiest surprise of all was that Elara had never truly walked away forever. She had only walked far enough to give them both a chance to find their way home.